Hey guys, Jack here, and this is a piece we're going to be working on today. So before I get too much into it, I wanted to talk to you guys about my Patreon that I've just launched. So the plan for that is there's going to be tutorial videos just like the one you're seeing now. I've decided to put this one out on YouTube first, completely free of charge obviously, as sort of a way of me to show you what I'm planning on doing and hopefully get you interested in what I'm doing essentially. In the future, there's going to be more videos like this one, apart from there won't be the voiceover and instructions, it will just be music. Over on my Patreon, you will be able to get the full video with the voiceover and the instructions. There will also be behind the scenes content like I'm having, there's going to be layered Photoshop documents, there's going to be behind the scenes images of my sketches and the process images, as well as wallpapers. I have some stretch goals, which essentially when I reach them, I'm hoping to do some prints. So there's going to be card prints, there's going to be postcard prints, there's also going to be limited edition prints. With the limited edition prints, I'm hoping to do almost like a pre-order via the Patreon, as well as doing money off codes for the web store. Anyway, let's get into this. So the first thing you see me doing is blocking in the values for the piece. This isn't normally a technique I'd use. I'd normally go straight in with colour. However, I'm trying out a new way of doing it. The reason being is you'll see later on I use some gradient map layers to start bringing in my colour palette. I thought by doing it this way, it'll keep more of a coherent colour palette throughout the whole piece. I like to have quite a limited palette, so 2, maybe 3 colours maximum. So this is a way for me to ensure that it does stay quite limited and I can keep within most ranges. So the most important thing at this stage is basically blocking in my values, working out the composition value-wise. So the background obviously you'll see is quite a light value. I've gone for more of a mid-tone value with this character here. What I found in the early stages of this is the values of her and the background were very close, and then the bird in the sky as well was also very close. You'll see I had a bit of difficulty with the bird. I found it wasn't working with composition. It was fighting for importance with the character, and yeah, it basically wasn't working. You'll see later on that I do remove it from the piece. So, but for now, yeah, I'm just working on the values, working out where my lighting's coming from, and I try and keep this stage very loose, very quick, and not go too much into details. When I get to the colours stage, I'll essentially be painting over all of this again. So I don't really want to spend too much time here because it essentially will turn out to wasted time. What you'll see with this bird is, again, the values weren't working. It was virtually the same value as the character. I tried counteracting that with some atmospheric perspective, but again, it still wasn't working. I bumped the values up so it's a very, very bright value to see if that would make it work. But still, the main problem, which I hadn't realised at this stage, was it was competing for importance in the piece. You see me playing around with some trees, which went pretty quickly then. They will come back later on in it once I get to the part where I remove the bird. So one of the things I get asked a lot is, in fact, I think we're going to get into colour in a second, so I'll save that for in a minute. With the colour, like I said, I used gradient maps on soft light blending modes, I think. Yeah, there were soft light blending modes. So I used 2 gradient maps. I used one which is called copper, which I turned down to about 30%, which just sort of did some nice things to my values. It sort of flattened out some of the values, but also brought out some of my shadows and basically made the piece feel like it had more depth and more form to the character. After that, I used a second one, which again was on soft light, but reduced to about 10 or 12% on the opacity of the layer. That was a green, purple, and orange, I believe, which gave basically sort of that sets up my colour palette for the piece. It did make her skin very green, which is something you'll see me counteract. I used a hard light layer for that. I used some orange tones on the hard light layer to give her skin tone and make some separation in clouds. Oh, there you go. You see the colour coming in there. So what I was going to talk about is the brushes I use, which is something I have got asked quite a lot when I've made videos in the past. I don't really use anything fancy. The only fancy one really will be the brush I used at the very start for the clouds. It is, I think it's meant to be used like a stamp to create the clouds. The way I use it is just as a normal brush, as you would with a normal brush. It's got some nice soft edges, it's nice and organic, it makes a nice cloud shape. So yeah, it does pretty much what it's meant to do, I think. Other than that, I use the standard hard round brush. I normally reduce the hardness down to about between 30 and 50% for the character's skin, depending on what I'm doing really. I'll use the hard round brush again with the shape dynamics on so that I can do my line work. Other than that, I'll have it very soft as well for some parts, and I will use a brush that I made myself, which is a square with shape dynamics, making it so that it twists and turns as I paint, and it's got textures on as well, which I found is a very nice brush for what I like to do. So here you'll see me coming back in a normal blending mode now, just bringing in some more colour variation into her skin. I find skin has a lot of different colours in it, so you've got your normal sort of salmon skin tones. There's some blues in there, greens in there, purples. In the areas where there isn't much flesh in between the skin and the bone, it'll be quite a yellowy sort of colour. Obviously, you've got to think about your subsurface scattering as well, which is quite important for skin. So you'll have some nice rich orange tones around the light areas, inside the nose as well. So here I think I was trying to work out my clouds and bring in some more colour variation into them. I'm adding some more blue tones into the sky. Again, I'm trying to keep with the limited palette, but the blue tones are pretty much within the same palette. They're just slightly different to what was there, just to make those clouds really pop out. Adding some highlights onto the clouds, which helps define my direction of the light. Still working around that bird, which you'll probably see disappear very shortly. Yeah, just working on the clouds here, sort of bringing out their forms a bit, bringing out some separation in the clouds. Getting some separation between the character and the clouds. Next up is working with the dress. Now, other than clouds, my favourite thing to do is probably clothing, especially clothing with lots of folds in it. I think it adds some nice texture and some nice details to the piece, and also you can add a lot of movement, and because it's a very organic shape, it doesn't have to be rigid and still. Like I say, it brings in a lot of movement to the piece. So I'm bringing in some more colours into the shadows here. Rather than using blacks and greys to create the shadows in the piece, I like to use some quite highly saturated colours, usually warm colours. Most of the piece here is cool tones, so the warm colours in the shadows really help bring out some other parts of the piece. You've just seen the bird disappear at last, and you can see the difference it's made to the composition already. So I'm just working in some clouds where it was. Again, going back to the clothing, bringing in some more of those warm tones in the shadows. This is a model on screen. So it's a 3D model that I've created using software called DAZ 3D. Essentially, you can create these people on there which are completely posable, so you can move them around, get them to do whatever you want. You can set up lighting them as well. I use them often to make reference for my character illustrations. It saves me going through Google for hours on end trying to find the perfect pose when I can just make one for myself. Something I noticed again with the piece is it's all very cool tones. So what I'm doing here is trying to bring in some warmer tones. This didn't actually stay in the final painting, and it's probably removed in a second on the video. But I wanted to bring in some warmer tones, again offset against the cooler tones. In the final painting, what I did was I changed her hair to be red. So what I'm doing is adding some dead trees in the background just to give a sense of space and depth in the piece. I'll usually do 3 or more. I try and stay away from even numbers. I find even numbers are too symmetrical and boring. So yeah, usually odd numbers. 3 is normally a good one to go for. And I try to make the space in between those repeating elements to vary between them, which again stops it being quite so boring. Here you can see the red hair coming in. With hair, I tend to not go too much into detail. So my style is pretty painterly and rough. compared to some stuff you'll see. So I tend to just sort of block in my colours for highlights and shadows, and move some of it around with the smudge tool to get some nice little strands of hair going. So this was probably the most tedious part of the piece, which was doing the wings. I haven't really done wings like this in the past, so this was new for me as well. So I did spend quite a bit of time on it. So the main way I did this was I sort of drew out the shape of the feathers and then went back in and added shadows where they were overlapping and added some small details. I didn't want to do too much with them because I quite liked the texture I'd achieved when I was doing the black and white stage, which was done just by putting in some lighter and darker values and using the smudge tool again. So I'm defining the edge of the wings there. And something else I do, because these are nearing the outside of the piece as well, but I didn't want to go too much into detail, I will put most of my attention into the focal point, which in this is her face, putting most of the detail there and then working out from the face, using less and less detail towards the edges of the painting, so that you really do focus on where you're meant to, where your eye's meant to go. So again, bringing in more of those warm tones in the shadows. And like I said, I spent quite a bit of time here. Still working on those wings. They really did take me a long time to do. I don't know if I do much else on this piece other than this. It's mostly just working out the details and noodling away at it, which you'll notice now that other than the bird, it hasn't changed a huge amount from where I've begun, because the early stages with the line work is basically just working out the composition and where I want to place everything in the piece and the proportions, etc. So most of the hard work is done in that part. I tend not to show my line work in the videos because, again, it's mostly me going backwards and forwards, rubbing things out and trying things and messing around, and this video would have ended up a lot longer. So the total time recorded was just over 7 hours, and I've sped it up by 3,000% to fit into 15 minutes. So you can only imagine how long it was if I added the line work on as well. The total time spent on it was probably about 15 to 20 hours. No, it wasn't that long. It was between 10 and 15 hours, somewhere around there. So the last bits I wanted to talk about was to bring up my Patreon again. Basically, there's going to be a link at the end of the video on the end card. There's going to be a link in the description for the Patreon. It'd be fantastic if you could go there, have a look, see the kind of thing I'm doing, and if you feel able to, there's no obligation, but if you feel able to, pledging for it would be a huge help for me to create more content like this. The other thing you can do for me is like this video, give it a thumbs up, share it, subscribe to me, comment. If you do subscribe, there's a little bell button next to the subscription box, which if you click that, you'll get notifications whenever I upload something new to YouTube. Yeah, and that's it. Thank you ever so much for watching. I appreciate you coming here to see what I'm doing. And in the future, it'd be great to see you over on Patreon. Thank you ever so much. Bye now.